I'm gonna be 1000% honest with you guys. Fort Lauderdale is by far the best place to live in all of South Florida. I mean, think about it. It's the Venice of America. We have some of the best beaches in all of South Florida. We're a spring break mecca. I mean, it's in our roots. We have some of the best boating, not to mention 365 days of sunshine to be out there on the water. Well, minus the 3 p.m. thunderstorms in the afternoons in the summers, but that's besides the point. But is it really paradise? Because obviously some people really don't like living here. And like anything else, it does have its cons. And in this video, I really want to talk about the real pros and the real cons of living here in Fort Lauderdale in 2025, from everything from the development going on, the culture aspect, the lifestyle and the boating, the assessments and the issues with the condos, and yes, there are quite a few, as well as all the issues going on with insurance. And we'll dive into all that, coming from a local who's pretty much grown up and lived here my entire life, minus when I went away to college. And honestly, there's really not any place I'd rather live. But before we do that, all I ask is that if you or anyone you know are looking to buy, sell, or invest anywhere here in Fort Lauderdale or in South Florida in general, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. We've helped hundreds of families just like you make the move here to Fort Lauderdale, invest here in Fort Lauderdale, and even give them recommendations for date night. I was just on the phone this morning with this lady, and they were looking for a new restaurant for her and her husband to go out to for dinner. So anything that you guys need, we're only a phone call, an email, or a text away. But now let's kind of dive into it. Let's talk about what makes Fort Lauderdale so great, and also what are some of the negatives that come with living in Fort Lauderdale. I think the first thing we have to start with is the pro number one is the development. So when you think of luxury condos in South Florida, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably Miami, Brickell, South Beach, maybe even West Palm. You know, some people probably think of that. But what you're gonna start thinking about is Fort Lauderdale. For the longest time, we really don't have any luxury condos. I mean, we have 100 Las Olas. It's nice, don't get me wrong, but it's not on the same level as that of many of the buildings in Miami. I mean, the buildings in Miami have every amenity under the sun. It's literally a full concierge building, like you don't have to leave. We don't have that yet here in Fort Lauderdale, but that's about to change because there is a ton of development going on, and it really starts with the Pier 66 residences. So as you know, the Pier 66 Hotel and Residences on 17th Street has been a staple here in Fort Lauderdale, but recently it has undergone a complete transformation, and now it's going to be the pinnacle of luxury living here in Fort Lauderdale, at least for now. And that was the catalyst for a lot of development going on here. So that was the first building that's really going to be solidified and finished, and now they're redoing the convention center right down the street. Not to mention, they've also announced the St. Regis Bahia Mar. So the famous Bahia Mar is going to be completely redone, and it's become pretty much its own mini Monaco here in Fort Lauderdale. Now, as we continue to work our way down Fort Lauderdale Beach, there's also Celine, which will be one of the brand new beachfront condos. And that's something that we really do need, which we're gonna talk about in a second with some of these issues with condos. Then as we head down Las Olas, we also have Andare, which is going to completely transform living on Las Olas as we know it. Finally, a luxury building coming to Las Olas. We also have 6 in Rio, which will be in Rio Vista, with a mixture of condo units as well as townhomes. Then we get into probably what I'm most excited about, and that's Flagler Village. Flagler Village is kind of like Fort Lauderdale's version of Wynwood. Not as trendy, not as hipster. We don't have as much going on yet, but there's a ton of development coming here to Flagler Village, plus a lot of opportunity. For the longest time, it's really been apartment buildings, not really anything residential, a few condo buildings here and there, but they have more of like that New York type vibe to it. Nothing that we really would want to live in until now, and that's with some development like that of the Searstown project, which will be a mixed use development, bringing office space, retail space, as well as a hotel and residences. We also have the Viceroy residences that are coming, which will be right there on Federal across from the Waverly, and it's bringing the Viceroy Hotel and Residences and all the amenities that come with that, which will be awesome. As well as probably my favorite project in all of Fort Lauderdale, Bell, which is going to bring a building with over 100,000 square feet of amenity space. And it doesn't stop right here in Fort Lauderdale. Let's also talk about Pompano, which kind of gets lumped into the Fort Lauderdale area. For the longest time, Pompano was like, bro, I don't know if I'm going there. But they announced the Ritz, and I was like, all right, they announced the Ritz. Obviously, they did their homework, right? I mean, the Ritz-Carlton's not just gonna build a building anywhere. They built it, oceanfront and marina front sold out. Then that was just the catalyst. From there, we have Salado, we have the W residences, the Armani Casa residences, and even a Waldorf Astoria. So as you can see, Pompano and Fort Lauderdale are booming. But But Joe, what about the flip side of things? What about some of these resale condos and some of the older condos? Because like, I love Galt Mile. By far, one of the most walkable and best beachfront condo communities in all of Fort Lauderdale and South Florida. But they do have some downsides that they're working through, as well as all condos, and that's the assessments. So, as you know, when that one building collapsed in Surfside here in the state of Florida, we wanted to ensure that that never happens again. And in doing so, a lot of these buildings are having to go through complete concrete restorations. They're having to have fully funded reserve funds and just, really take care of these buildings, because a lot of it was just deferred maintenance. And in order to do so, a lot of these buildings are doing the concrete restoration like we were talking about. They're having to redo balconies, they're putting in impact windows, they're having to reseal the roofs. And this isn't free, it's gotta cost someone something somewhere. And since these buildings don't have the reserve funds for it like they were supposed to, they're having to charge the residents. So it's not uncommon for some residents to have $100,000, $150,000, maybe even a $200,000 assessment to take care of this. And I know that sounds daunting, but granted, they don't have to pay it all at once. There are payment plans for it, but still, think about it. You're living in this unit, it's completely paid off. You've just been paying your HOA and your insurance, and then all of a sudden you get slapped with a $150,000 assessment. You gotta be kind of pissed and wanna sell it too. But if you decide to sell it and everyone else decides to sell it, it's kind of a red flag, and not a lot of them are moving. Now, granted, a lot of sellers are opting to pay the assessments off at closing, which does help a lot of buyers. And I think it does create a lot of opportunity if you can weather the storm and kind of work your way through these assessments as we get into midway through 2025 and into 2026. We'll have a better idea moving forward. But another thing to think about with these assessments is also the insurance. So insurance costs have gone up with these buildings because they have a lot of deferred maintenance. So your HOA fees are up, you have a higher assessment as well. So that's just something that you really have to take into consideration. However, you don't really see that as much with some of these newer condos because they're taking care of things from the get-go, which is a really nice thing. However, living in paradise, that's just something that comes with living here. Now, I will say a pro though of living here in Fort Lauderdale and living in paradise though has to be the location. And I think this really gets slept on and no one really talks about it. So like we were talking about before, Galt Mile, one of the best, most walkable condo beachfront living areas that you could live in here in South Florida. But Fort Lauderdale has a lot more to offer than just that. And we're pretty much close to everything. You wanna go to Boca for the day, you can easily get there. It's a 30 to maybe 45-minute car ride. You wanna go out west to the Everglades, go on an airboat ride, go to Sawgrass Mills. You can do that and be there in about 20 to 30 minutes. Heck, you wanna go to a Heat game. You can be to a Heat game if you take the Bright Line in only 30 minutes and get dropped off 2 blocks from the arena. Where else can you do that? Okay, maybe I wanna go to the Green Market in West Palm. You could do the same thing and take the Bright Line. So you can take the Bright Line and get around a lot of different areas here in South Florida. I mean, we can be in Miami in about 30, 45 minutes with the Bright Line. You can be in Boca in about 15 to 30 minutes. West Palm in about 30 to 45 minutes. If you're driving, obviously those times are a little bit longer, but we have a great central location. And I think the Bright Line really helps with that as well on the transportation side. However, I will say one con though is our transportation and public transportation system. The Bright Line is great. It's our, high-speed rail system, similar in a sense to that of like the Amtrak. However, it really only goes to downtown Miami, Aventura, downtown Fort Lauderdale, Meisner Park in Boca, downtown West Palm, and then all the way up to the Orlando International Airport, which is really clutch. But it's really only going north and south. We don't have a way to get around east and west. And no matter how you slice it, the traffic in Fort Lauderdale in South Florida sucks. Like, I live downtown, I was trying to go to Trader Joe's, which should take me only about 10, 15 minutes with no traffic. The other day it was start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. It took me almost 45 minutes to get there, and I'm like, at this point I can't even go. I still have appointments, things I have to do. So, especially during season, like snowbird season, spring break, different parts of the summer, you're gonna have to budget an extra maybe 10 to 15 minutes on either side of your commute because just the traffic in general. People wanna live in paradise. And the reason they wanna live here is another pro, and that's the lifestyle that we have here in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, think about it. Living here in Fort Lauderdale, we really have everything that you could wanna do, especially if you're a big outdoors person like myself. Obviously, we have the beach and everything that the beach has to offer, but personally, I'm not a beach person. I like it, and I'll go, but it becomes kind of a touristy thing. I don't like the sand. What I do really love about living here is the boating. Like I said, We're the Venice of America. We have over 300 miles of inland waterways, plenty of things to go and explore, and we're also the yachting capital of the world. Now, obviously, maybe you and I don't own a yacht, but I still want to get out there on the water. It doesn't matter whether you get out there on a paddleboard, a kayak, a jet ski, a little pontoon boat, or even just a little Carolina skiff. Just getting out on the water is completely different from anything else. We do have the sandbar just north of the 17th Street Bridge. We have 2 inlets that you can go out of. So you can go out of either Lighthouse Point Inlet, which is only maybe 15, 20 minutes away from most marinas. We also have Port Everglades, which is the Fort Lauderdale Inlet where you see all the cruise ships. So there's a lot of different activities and things that you can do, not to mention plenty of parks as well. If boating and the beach aren't your thing, we have great parks like that at Birch State Park where you can go hiking, biking, you can have a picnic, you can go fishing, paddleboarding, kayaking. We also have George English Park and Holiday Park if you want to play basketball, pickleball. We have theaters. We also have great shopping all around with things like the Aventura Mall, Sawgrass Mills Mall, and even Boca Town Center. And to top it all off, I think we have some of the best cuisine in all of Florida. Obviously, Miami takes the cake when it comes to Michelin star restaurants, but between you and I don't think the Michelin star restaurants are all that. I really like the hole in the wall places. And that's what we do have a ton of, some little mom and pop places. And if you love to try different kinds of food, this is going to be the spot for you. Now, with all that being said, I will say the last pro of living here in Fort Lauderdale is the culture. Now, I think I personally took it for granted growing up, where you're growing up with a bunch of different cultures, people from all over the world, all different kinds of religions. You're really in a melting pot and kind of traveling abroad without being abroad. And then you go off to school or move to a different city and you realize that like, whoa, not everyone really gets to experience that like here in South Florida. A lot of people probably think here in South Florida, it's just all people who speak Spanish. And honestly, yes, there's people who speak Spanish, but we do have a great mix of all these different cultures as well. And it really helps you to become, just a more well-traveled, well-versed person. And to be honest with you, as more and more people start to find out how much of a hidden gem Fort Lauderdale really is, I know it doesn't sound like it, like Joe, Fort Lauderdale, a hidden gem. Like, dude, people have known about it now. Like, it's still a hidden gem for a lot of people. And the more stuff that we're bringing, the development, the lifestyle, everything that comes with it, it's just gonna get that much better. So if you or anyone you know are looking to buy, sell, or invest here in Fort Lauderdale or South Florida in general, like I said, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can call us, email, text us, whatever's easiest for you, we got you.